once again. Christian greetings to all our valued listeners and viewers throughout the whole world. More particularly to all Shepherd's Rod believers, and most especially to our beloved brothers and sisters in the United States of America. Special greetings to our brethren in Colorado, our brethren in Georgia, in Kansas, in Fiji Island, in Mexico, Spain, in Africa, to the United Kingdom, and also to our brethren in Australia. And to the rest of the 144,000 living saints scattered abroad, greetings. May the good Lord bless you, brothers and sisters. Still, we focus our attention to the subject, the chronological order of events. And this subject is especially dedicated to our brethren, Brother Steve, Sister Corinne, and to the rest. And this is our episode number 14. And at this time, we will be focusing our attention to the granting of rewards. And let us distinctly separate the granting of rewards that takes place in heaven, which is purely bookwork transaction, and the granting of rewards, which is the actual. It is granting immortality, whether by translation or by resurrection. Now, let us read again the statement in 2SR 234 rather. 2SR 234. Why only two kinds of cereals brought to view? Why not 5? The two cereals are sufficient to illustrate the thought and to clear the lesson. But the chief reason for only 2 is to draw attention to the first and last calls, because reference is made of but 2 Israels, namely Israel after the flesh, the descendants of Abraham, and Israel after the Spirit, the 144,000. But the object of the lesson is for the latter, who are hired at the 11th hour. For the truth of the parable has never been understood by any other company. But at this time, we will prove to you that the two kinds of cereals brought to view is also to illustrate the first and the second fruits. As far as the Bible is for prophecy and the shepherd's rod, we know that there are only 2 fruits, the first fruits and the second fruits. So, let us focus our attention to the first fruits and the second fruits, both to the dead and to the living. Now, I would like to read tract number 3. Tract number 3 on page 84 and page 85. It says, the 40 days of Christ's personal presence on earth after his resurrection was the time in which the first fruits were gathered in. For after his ascension, the Christians closeted themselves in the upper room and did not emerge to preach the truth until the Pentecost. The 120 who received the power of the Spirit on the very day the wave loaves were offered were therefore the antitypical wave loaves, signifying the completeness of the first fruit harvest. Subsequently came the second fruits of the dead, in the period of which the tares were commingled with the wheat. Now, I would like to read first the statement on tract number 3, page 83. It says, beginning from page 82, as the light focusing to this point clearly reveals that the Pentecost after the resurrection was for the ingathering of those who were to die, there must correspondingly be a Pentecost for the ingathering of those who are to be translated. And by this same token of logic, the wave sheep and the wave loaves must have a double application, each to the dead and to the living, together comprising the total fruits of the antitypical harvest. Now, I will try my best with the help of the Lord that, if possible, I could be able to explain this very important subject, and seems very complicated, but we know that the deeper the subject is, the more glorious the truth contained therein. So the shepherd's rod plainly told us that the wave sheep and the wave loaves has a double application, each to the dead and to the living. But the dead and the living was illustrated only by two fruits, the first fruits and the second fruits. Now, so let us now categorize all the first fruits and all the second fruits. So, hoping that God would help us, brothers and sisters. Now here in track number 3 on page 79, it says, let's read. So Christ the first fruits, and those who with him at his resurrection came forth from the grave, raised to everlasting life, were the antitypical waveship of the dead. So they were the antitypical waveship of the dead. And since the waveship of grain pointed forward to the ingathering of the first fruits of the field, just so those who arose with Christ, being first fruits of the dead, pointed forward to the ingathering of the gospel first fruits, the 120 disciples. So, those that had been resurrected together with Jesus Christ at 6 a.m., they were called as the first fruits. But the 120 disciples is also called the gospel first fruits. Although Jesus Christ is all in all, according to the shepherd's rod, Jesus Christ signify all in all. Now, let us focus our attention to the first fruits that had been resurrected together with Jesus Christ. Who are they? The corresponding second fruits of those that had been resurrected together with Christ. Resurrection. Now, let us go back again to the statement in track number 3, page 84. It says, the 40 days of Christ's personal presence on earth after his resurrection was the time in which the first fruits were gathered in. So, that is after his resurrection. It says, the 40 days of Christ's personal presence on earth after his resurrection was the time in which the first fruits were gathered in. For after his ascension, the Christians closeted themselves in the upper room and did not emerge to preach the truth until the Pentecost. The 120 who received the power of the Spirit on the very day the wave loaves were offered were therefore the antitypical wave loaves, signifying the completeness of the first fruit harvest. So the 120 disciples had two significance. They signify the first fruits, and here they also signifying the antitypical wave loaves, by which on that day of Pentecost, when they received the power, that Pentecostal power, it signifies the completeness of the first fruit harvest. Then it says, subsequently came the second fruits of the dead, in the period of which the tares were commingled with the wheat. What period of time by which that is the time the tares and the wheat were commingled? So we need to ascertain clearly what period of time, or in what period of time did commence the period of time by which the tares and the wheat were commingled. And in that period of time, accordingly, that is the period of time of the second fruits of the dead. And that second fruits of the dead, who are they? Their corresponding first fruits. Now, I would like to read to TG I think 46. Page 2TG 46, page 27 and 28. So I would like to read this reading. And at the time when we could be able to fully establish the granting of rewards both to the dead and to the living, then there will be no more difficulty to understand the chronological order of events. So it says here, to get into the full beam of light, we must first face the fact that the pre-Pentecostal harvest took place in a self-deceived church, the Jewish church. And through miracle working power manifested by Christ himself, it yielded the 120 disciples, the first fruits of those who are to be resurrected. It says, the first fruits of those who are to be resurrected. Whereas the post-Pentecostal harvest took place among the nations, and through miracle power manifested by the 120 Spirit-filled disciples, it yielded an innumerable multitude of converts to Christianity. Acts 2 verse 41 and 47. The second fruits of those who are to be resurrected. And of course, that is from June 7, 31 AD onwards. So, the gospel first fruits, that is the 120 disciples, through the miracle working power manifested by Christ himself, and it yielded the 120 disciples, the gospel first fruits. And those appointed to die and then resurrected. or to be resurrected according to that reading. And those converts from the time they received the Pentecost onwards, called the second fruits. So, the 120 disciples, the first fruits, and those that had been converted after the Pentecost. Now, this is the question. Those that had been converted from 31 AD up to, I would like to place 44 AD. Are they the second fruits during the period by which the wheat and tares are commingled? And let us go back again to the reading. In track number 3. It says, page 85. Subsequently came the second fruits of the dead in the period of which the tares were commingled with the wheat. Now, for example, I would like to illustrate. According to 2 TJ 46, 27 and 28, from 27 AD to 31 AD, the 120 disciples, they are the gospel first fruits according to the shepherd's rod. The gospel first fruits. Through the miracle working power manifested by Christ Himself, it yielded the 120 disciples gospel first fruits. And those that had been converted after the Pentecost, I would like to put here 44 AD. This is the second fruits. The second fruits are of the gospel. Now, the question is that, is this the second fruits mentioned in track number 3, page 85? The second fruits during the period by which the wheat and tares are commingled. Is this the second fruits mentioned in that reading? That had been converted during this period of time. I would like to read again the statement. Track number 3, page 85. Subsequently came the second fruits of the dead in the period of which the tares were commingled with the wheat. So, I would like to repeat again the questions. Does the second fruits mentioned in track number 3, page 85, during the period by which the wheat and tares are commingled, is this the second fruits during this period of time? Does the period from 31 AD to 44 AD is the period of time by which the tares and the wheat are commingled? Now, I would like to read first answerer number 2 on page 10. As a result of persecuting the woman, Satan was, ironically, only helping rather than hindering the divine purpose. Indeed, the church filled, Matthew 13 verse 38, grew only pure with the net. Verse 47, caught only good fish, because against such a persecution, only the faithful dared take their stand for truth and to become members of the hated sect. So, the statement is very plain here in Answerer number 2, page 10, that there was a period of time when the apostles were preaching the gospel. There is no tares, or there are no tares that had been joined into the church. The only one who joined the church are purely wheat. Only good fish that had been converted at that time. So it could not be the period of time mentioned in tract number 3, page 85. In the period of time by which in the church, the tares and the wheat are commingled. So, we need to study closely, brothers and sisters, the history as well as the prophecy. And that is the reason why our Almighty God followed that particular rule, 3-hour schedule, according to 2SR 237, to present to His church the exact time of her history by periods. So when does that period of time by which the wheat and tares in the church began to commingle? We already read in Answerer number 2, page 10, that during that great persecution, brothers and sisters, only pure wheat grow into the church. There is no tares. There is no bad fish, only good fish. Now, I would like to read tract number 3. Tract number 3 on page 60 and 61. The evil, tract number 3, page 60. The evil of allowing the devil freely to sow the tares among the wheat has existed in the Christian church since the passing of the apostles. In page 61 it says, as the period since the passing of the apostles has been the wheat and tare growing time. When does the commingling of wheat and tares in the church? After all the apostles died. After all the apostles died, brothers and sisters, according to tract number 3, page 60 and page 61. And we know that the last apostle who died is John the Beloved. And he died on 100 AD. So the church the Christian church that had been the period of time of commingling the wheat and the tares commenced in the period of Ephesus. The first candlestick on Revelation chapter 2, and that was on 100 AD. That was in 100 AD. So therefore, it cannot be applied as the second fruits. Brothers and sisters, the second fruits in the period by which the wheat and the tares are commingled. So, that statement in tract number 3, page 85, can be none other than pointing to the proceedings in the heavenly sanctuary. Now, when does the proceedings in the heavenly sanctuary did commence? First, let us read in tract number 3, page 18. It says, hence, his mediatorial work began first in the holy, then in the most holy. Tract number 3, page 18. So Christ's mediatorial work began first in the holy place and then in the most holy place. Now, the most important question is that, when does Christ's mediatorial work in the holy place, in the heavenly sanctuary, did commence? Now, I would like to read first tract number 3, page 85. Let us read tract number 3 on page 85, the statement. Just as Christ and those whom He raised and took with Him became the prototypical sheep, betokening the ingathering of the first fruits, the 120, of those who are to be resurrected. So also, when entered upon His priestly ministration in the first apartment of the heavenly sanctuary. What is the first apartment in the heavenly sanctuary? Holy place. It says, so also, when He entered upon His priestly ministration in the first apartment of the heavenly sanctuary, and presented Himself and His trophies before His Father, they became the antitypical sheep, betokening the ingathering of the first fruits of those who are to be translated, the 144,000 living saints. In the light of this parallel, the spiritual condition of the 120 before the apostolic Pentecost is clearly seen to typify the spiritual condition of the 144,000 before the future Pentecost. Now, let us focus first to the statement when Jesus Christ entered His priestly ministration in the first apartment on the heavenly sanctuary, that is holy place. Now, in the great controversy, 21. So it says here, for 18 centuries, this work of ministration continued in the first apartment of the sanctuary. So the same statement, track number 3, page 85 and 86, first apartment. How many years Christ's ministration in the heavenly sanctuary on the first apartment? 1,800 years. When does Jesus Christ entered to the most holy place? October 22, 1844. Then it's easy to locate the exact period of time when Jesus Christ entered into the holy place. 1844 minus 1,800, that would be 44 AD. So Jesus Christ entered into the first apartment on the heavenly sanctuary, holy place, on October 11, 44 AD. And he continued that work from that time onward, according to the Great Controversy, page 421, for 1,800 years. Brothers and sisters, for 1,800 years or 18th century. Now let us focus first our attention in 31 AD on Christ's resurrection. On Christ's resurrection, brothers and sisters. So, here in early writings, page 184, when Jesus, as he hung upon the cross, cried out, "It is finished." We know that that is Friday, 3 p.m. When Jesus Christ cried out, "It is finished." Friday on 3 p.m. The rocks rent, the earth shook, and some of the graves were opened. When he arose, a victor over death and the grave, while the earth was reeling and the glory of heaven shone around the sacred spot, many of the righteous dead, obedient to his call, came forth as witnesses that he had risen. Those favored rising saints came forth glorified. They were chosen and holy ones of every age, from creation down even to the days of Christ. Thus, while the Jewish leaders were seeking to cancel the fact of Christ's resurrection, God chose to bring up a company from their graves to testify that Jesus had risen and to declare his glory. Early writings, page 184. So, those that had been resurrected on 31 AD are selected from the first 3 seals. Some of them are from the first seal. Some of them are from the second seal. And some of them are from the third seal. Because from creation to 31 AD, that is the period of the first 3 seals, as stated in 2SR, page 221. Now, brothers and sisters, let us distinctly separate, brothers and sisters, those that had been resurrected on the time when Jesus Christ cried, "It is finished," brothers and sisters, and those that had been resurrected together with the resurrection of Jesus Christ, and those that had been resurrected after Christ's resurrection. So, we need now to distinctly separate those events that had been revealed by God through the 3 hours schedule. But the fact is that all of them are first fruits. Therefore, those that had been resurrected at 31 AD, some of them are the first fruits of the first seal. Some of them are the first fruits of the second seal. And some of them are the first fruits of the third seal. So, of course, the second fruits must be the second fruits of the first seal, the second fruits of the second seal, and the second fruits of the third seal. So at this time, we need to perfectly match the corresponding first fruits and second fruits. So I would like to enumerate again. Those that had been resurrected in 31 AD, all of them are first fruits. They were categorized by the shepherd's rod as first fruits. But we need to understand that they are selected from creation down to the days of Christ. Early writings 184. Therefore, those that had been resurrected in 31 AD, first fruits of the first seal, first fruits of the second seal, first fruits of the third seal. So we need to find out who are they, the corresponding second fruits of these first fruits that had been resurrected in 31 AD. And also, we need to find out the corresponding first fruits of the second fruits of the dead during the period when the wheat and the tares are commingled. Or that statement, the wheat and the tares are commingled, brothers and sisters, since it is pertaining to the dead, it is purely bookwork transaction. Because there is no period of time in the judgment that pertains to the dead that there is a separation of wheat and tares on the earthly sanctuary. Only heavenly sanctuary. Now, I would like to read again White House Recruiter. White House Recruiter on page 20. It says, as the cleansing of the sanctuary in behalf of the dead is necessarily purely a book transaction, that is the reason for its taking place only in the heavenly sanctuary. White House Recruiter, page 20. Because the statement cleansing, meaning the tares must be taken out. So, the period by which the wheat and the tares are commingled, of course, that is polluted up, or period of time by which the Lamb's Book of Life is polluted by those names, which is unworthy to be there. So the shepherd's rod declared clearly in White House Recruiter, page 20, that the separation of the tares among the wheat, when it pertains to the dead, brothers and sisters, it is purely bookwork transaction. There is no proceedings on the earthly sanctuary, only in the heavenly sanctuary. So we will be studying concerning the separation of the tares from among the wheat pertaining to the dead. That proceedings is only in the heavenly sanctuary. Purely bookwork transaction. Now, we want to firmly establish that period of time, saying, I would like to read again, in track number 3, page 85. Subsequently came the second fruits of the dead. So the second fruits of the dead, in the period of which the tares were commingled with the wheat. And we already proven with absolute fact that the commingling of wheat and tares, it is after the passing of the apostles. Track number 3, page 60 and 61. And the last apostle who died is 100 AD. That is John the Beloved. So the apostolic church, which is the triumphant church, it is not a militant church, it is a triumphant church. There is no tares. Brothers and sisters, the devil completely failed to sow his devilish seeds into that church. It says, grew only pure wheat. Answerer number 2, page 10. So, brothers and sisters, the only churches by which it was predicted beforehand, by which the wheat and the tares are commingled, are the 7 churches on Revelation chapter 2. Chapter 2 and chapter 3. From Ephesus to Laodicea. Now, I would like to read, brothers and sisters, answerer number 1, pages 10 and page 11. It says, the Revelation, chapters 2 and 3, describes the condition of each of the 7 churches. So it is concerning the 7 churches in Revelation 2 and 3, and we know the apostolic church is not a part of it. Because according to 2SR 284, the apostolic church is the second candlestick on Revelation 11 verse 3 and 4. There are 2 candlesticks there. The first candlestick is the Jewish church while the Old Testament were being written, and then the second candlestick is the apostolic church while the New Testaments are being written. And since the New Testament period, the New Testament church writings, or the writings of the New Testament was completely written in 100 AD, then we can understand that the entire period of the Apostolic Church is from 27 AD to 100 AD. That is the entire period of the Apostolic Church. There is a similarity of the Apostolic Church and the Philadelphian Church because both of them are pure. I would like to read to you to illustrate the similarity of the Apostolic Church and the Philadelphian Church. Let us read tract number 2. It says on page 33 and 34, tract number 2. It says, of all the 7 churches, Revelation 2 and 3, tract number 2, page 33 and 34. Of all the 7 churches, Revelation 2 and 3, only the Philadelphian, the Millerite church did not run afoul the same satanic practices. Ever true to God, it closed its brief but spotless career in 1844. Its appointed destination, having lived its entire life under the personal supervision of its founder, it was never new modeled. Tract number 2, page 33 and 34. So, there is similarity because the entire period of the Apostolic Church from 27 AD to 100 AD, when the period of the Apostolic Church ended, also the last apostle died the same year, 100 AD. Although the Millerites movement ended, according to 2SR page 97, ended in 1844, but Miller was still alive. But both of them spotless. It is a pure church. So we have 2 examples of triumphant church, the Apostolic Church and the Philadelphian Church. Brothers and sisters. Now let us go back again to answerer number 1. Let's read on page 10 and page 11. The Revelation chapters 2 and 3 describes the condition of each of the 7 churches, the last of which is the Laodicean. These churches admittedly portray the Christian church in 7 different periods. The 7th, Laodicea, depicting her in the period just before the harvest, the last in which the wheat and tares are commingled, and the one in which she is to experience the separation of the bad from among the good. Matthew 13, verse 30, 47 to 49. Answerer, page 10 and 11. So, if we will not dig deeper, brothers and sisters, we could not be able to grasp the precious truths that had been recorded in that reading in answerer number 1, page 10 and 11. Now, if there are 7, brothers and sisters, there are 7 churches. but is predicted beforehand, the wheat and tares are commingled. Or 7 different periods. Let us read again. It says, these churches admittedly portrayed the Christian church in 7 different periods. 7 different periods. The 7th Laodicea depicting here in the period just before the harvest, the last in which the wheat and tares are commingled. What is the 7th period? Laodicea. Now, let us now enumerate one by one. 7 periods, beginning from Ephesus. Ephesus, Smyrna, Pergamos, Thyatira, Sardis. Of course, we will not include Philadelphia. Because the description of Philadelphia, it says, spotless. The records of Philadelphia is spotless. The number 6 must be Laodicea. But it says 7 periods. Brothers and sisters, there is no escaping the conclusion that it must be the period number 6 that is typical Laodicea, and period number 7 that is antitypical Laodicea. Antitypical Laodicea. To make it 7 periods, brothers and sisters, because Philadelphian period could not be a part of it because the record is spotless. And secondly, brothers and sisters, I would like to go back again to the reading. Truth is truth, and sense is sense. Let us have them both. 1 Thessalonians 6:32. Now let us go back again to answerer number 1, page 10 and page 11. The 7th Laodicea, and we already proved that it is, the 7th must be antitypical Laodicea, depicting here in the period just before the harvest. What harvest mentioned here? And then secondly, it says, the last in which the wheat and tares are commingled, and the one in which she is to experience the separation of the bad from among the good. What does it mean by separation of the bad from among the good? Because it is the bad that had been taken out from among the good. Now, I would like to read tract number 1. On page 25, it says, tract number 1, page 25 and 26. In this scripture too is seen the purification of the church. For the bad ones are taken away from among the good, and not the good from among the bad. That is, the bad that are in the net church are thrown out, and the good ones kept. track number 1, page 25 and page 26. I think that statement is not difficult to understand. There are only two sections of separation. The first section, it is the bad that had been taken out from among the good. The second section, it is the good that had been taken out from among the bad. But according to that reading in track number 1, page 25 and 26, the purification of the church is pointing to the first section, by which it is the bad that had been taken out from among the good and not the good from among the bad. That is very logical. To illustrate, I would like to illustrate, brothers and sisters. For example, this is the church. If the bad will be taken out from this church, the bad taken out, then this church is purified. But if the good had been taken out from this church, the good is taken out. Can we say that this church is purified? Then if that is the case, it is the good, it is the righteous that polluted this church. The same with the book. For example, this book mix righteous and wicked. Now, if the wicked will be blotted out in this book, then this book is cleansed. This book is cleansed. Now, if the names of the righteous have been blotted out in this book, here the names of the wicked blotted out, the book is cleansed. Now, what if the names of the righteous had been blotted out in this book? Are we saying that this book had been cleansed? While the one that had been remained in this book are the names of the wicked? No. So, the statement in track number 1, page 25 and 26 are very logical, brothers and sisters, that only the first section of the separation, by which the bad ones are taken out from among the good, that is called the purification of the church. Which church is to be purified? Is it the typical Laodiceans or the antitypical Laodiceans? Now, let us go back again. The reading in Answerer. It says, the seventh, I would like to begin with a statement. These churches admittedly portray the Christian church in 7 different periods. The seventh, Laodicea, depicting her in the period just before the harvest. The last, in which the wheat and tares are commingled. And the one in which she is to experience the separation of the bad from among the good. Meaning, this Laodicea will be purified because the bad are to be taken out from among the good. And this predicted event will be experienced only on the antitypical Laodiceans. And that is the people declaring the judgment that pertains to the living. Now, next proof, brothers and sisters, that it says the seventh still answerer number 1, page 10 and 11. The seventh, Laodicea, depicting here in the period just before the harvest. Now, when does the Seventh-day Adventist Church that had been raised by God? October 22, 1844. October 22, 1844. Now, we are focusing our attention to, I would like to find out that period of time by which the commingling of wheat and tares, by which in that period of time, the one that had been considered in the proceedings in the heavenly sanctuary are the second fruits of the dead, according to tract number 3, page 85. Now, I would like to put again, 31 AD to 100 AD. And it is in 100 AD, the commencement of the commingling of wheat and tares. Now the question, when does the period of the second fruits, who are they? Second fruits to be resurrected. Second fruits to be resurrected. So, who are they? Who are they, the second fruits? Second, when will they be resurrected? When will they be resurrected? We already established the fact that that period of time commenced in 100 AD. Not in 31 AD to 100 AD, because the shepherd says, grew only pure wheat. This period of time. So, from 100 AD, the proceedings in the heavenly sanctuary, brothers and sisters, in the first apartment or holy place, the one that had been considered are the second fruits of the dead. I would like to go to repeat it again and again, because maybe there is a little difficulty. But as we proceed, we could understand it clearly. Who are they, the second fruits? The second fruits to be resurrected. The statement to be resurrected, that is pointing to those saints who are already dead. And let us go back again to the statement. Tract number 3. So, let's read the statement here. Tract number 3 on let me see. I will. The statement by B.T. Hotep says, those page 85. Just as Christ and those whom He raised and took with Him became the prototypical sheep, betokening the ingathering of the first fruits, the 120, of those who are to be resurrected. So also when He entered upon His priestly ministration in the first apartment of the heavenly sanctuary, and presented Himself and His trophies before His Father, they become the antitypical sheep, betokening the ingathering of the first fruits of those who are to be translated, the 144,000 living saints. Now let us distinctly separate to the statement of those who are to be resurrected. And the statement of those who were to die. Now, let us read page 84. The reader will remember that those who arose with Christ on the 18th day of the first month, so that is April 18, 31 AD, follow the chart on page 55, were immortalized and received into heaven as the antitypical sheep, pointing to the ingathering of the fruits that shall never die. And of course, that is the 144,000 living saints, the ingathering of the fruits that shall never die. Their resurrection from the dead signified the beginning of the first fruit harvest of the 120 disciples who were to die and be resurrected. So, who were to die and be resurrected? So, the 120 disciples, the gospel first fruits. But what is the description of the 120 disciples? Those who were to die and then be resurrected. And I do fully believe that that statement, who were to die, they were still living. Brothers and sisters, the ingathering of the 120 disciples who were to die, they were gathered by which they were appointed to die, according to the voice of inspiration, and to be resurrected. For example, this reading in track number 3, on page 20 and page 21, it says, let's read. For Christ is not entered into the holy places made with hands, which are the figure of the true, but into heaven itself, now to appear in the presence of God for us. Hebrews 9 verse 24. Indeed, now once in the end of the world hath He appeared to put away sin by the sacrifice of Himself. And as it is appointed unto men once to die, so it is not pointing to Jesus Christ because it is inscribed in plural form, men. And as it is appointed unto men once to die, but after this, the judgment, the cleansing of the sanctuary, Daniel 8 verse 14. Now, then the shepherd says, plainly therefore, the judgment is to begin, and the sanctuary to be cleansed, not before, but after the fulfillment of the period for those appointed to die. It is not only to the time when the sanctuary is cleansed or to the last and the final day of atonement, but even to its beginning. It says, plainly, therefore, the judgment is to begin and the sanctuary to be cleansed, not before, but after the fulfillment of the period for those appointed to die. Now, I would like to show to you brothers and sisters. And we will study it, repeat again and again. In the heavenly sanctuary, in 33 AD, commenced, we called it the special session, up to 44 AD. Then 44 AD, then October 22, 1844. The proceedings in the heavenly sanctuary commence in the period not, I would like to read again the statement. What's the statement? Plainly, therefore, the judgment is to begin and the sanctuary to be cleansed, not before, but after the fulfillment of the period of those appointed to die. Let us focus first to the judgment begin. The judgment began in reality in 33 AD. And to repeat again, we call it the special session. Then, when the judgment began in 33 AD, then that is before 33 AD, brothers and sisters, there was no yet disciples that died. Because the judgment must begin, brothers and sisters, according to that reading, it says, plainly, therefore, the judgment is to begin and the sanctuary to be cleansed, not before, but after the fulfillment of the period for those appointed to die. So when the proceedings begins in 31 AD, then the apostles are appointed to die. The apostles are appointed to die. Now, how about the proceedings that commenced in October 22, 1844? The same. The proceedings in October 22, 1844 commenced when the constituent, some of the constituent of the fifth seal were still living. And who are they? The Millerites. Those who suffered great disappointment in October 22, 1844, they were still living, but they were already appointed to die. So the proceedings in the most holy place, October 22, 1844, begins, brothers and sisters, after the fulfillment of the proceedings of those who are appointed to die. Where? In the holy place. So the proceedings of the 120 disciples was already considered, brothers and sisters, in the heavenly sanctuary while they were still living. then appointed to die. Maybe you will ask, what proceedings? We will take that on another subject, but what we are studying here is the period of time. So that we could understand, brothers and sisters, there are 3 periods of time appointed to die. 33 AD, 1844, and then the last is under the 6th seal. The constituent of the 6th seal, the last constituent of the 6th seal, Revelation 14:13. Now let us read. On 2SR. 2SR page 162. SR page 162. The cases of all who are sealed from 1929 to the final close of provision will be investigated before the throne in the heavenly sanctuary while living. The investigation commences after the fulfillment of Ezekiel 9. Those who are sealed from 1929 to the fulfillment of Ezekiel 9, close of provision for the church, are living saints, 144,000 in number, who shall never die, translated without tasting death. Now, it cannot be construed, brothers and sisters, that the sealing of the 144,000 commenced in 1929. The sealing of the 144,000 living saints that will no longer to taste death. Brothers and sisters, when it comes to the proceedings in the heavenly sanctuary, the first fruits always indicates 144,000. So that first fruits on the earth, which is 144,000, is also reflecting the proceedings in the heavenly sanctuary. The first fruits are numbered, the second fruits not numbered. Right? Brothers and sisters. So let us distinctly separate all the first fruits that pertains to the dead. Because we already read in tract number 3 that the first fruits and the second fruits has a double application. It's to the dead and to the living. Because wave shape and wave lobes indicates first fruits and second fruits. And since there are 6 seals which pertains to the dead, so there must be first fruit of the first seal, first fruit of the second seal, first fruit of the third seal, first fruit of the fourth seal, first fruit of the fifth seal, first fruit of the sixth seal. And let us distinctly separate the occurrence in 31 AD that pertains to the 120 disciples, because that occurrence takes place on earth, not in heaven. So, the admonition given in tract number 8, page 5 then. So, to correctly understand, we need to distinctly separate the part which takes place in heaven and the part which takes place on earth. So, in this study, under the sixth seal, the first fruits of the sixth seal are two classes. Isaiah 57:1 and the first fruits of Revelation 14:13. So, let us distinctly separate the corresponding second fruits of Isaiah 57:1 and the corresponding second fruits of Revelation 14:13. It is more easier to categorize the first fruits and second fruits that pertains to the living, because it is the first fruits, 144,000 living saints, spiritual Israel, and the great multitude, the second fruits. But that is the given clue. The first fruits and the second fruits does not refer alone to the living saints. As we read in the Shepherd's Rod publications, the 120 disciples, they are called gospel first fruits. Who are they? Those who are appointed to die. When Jesus Christ ascended to heaven, and 31 AD, May 27, 31 AD. How do we know, brothers and sisters, that the proceedings in the first apartment commenced in 33 AD? By which we called it a special session. Now, I would like to read first track number 3. Track number 3 on pages 17, page 16 and 17. It says, these verses reveals, track number 3, 16 and 17. These verses reveal that after the judgment was set and the books were opened, the Son of Man, Christ, was then brought to a position not at the right hand of God, the Ancient of Days, but near before Him. Daniel 7, verse 8 to 10 and verse 13. Both John's and Daniel's visions revealed that the throne in the sanctuary was not there from the beginning of the creation of God. First, we need to understand that the sanctuary exists. I would like to read to SR. The existence of the sanctuary. Because it is through the sanctuary construction and service the plan of redemption is revealed. According to 2SR 187, it says, in the sanctuary construction and service is revealed the plan of salvation. 2SR 187. Now, in 188, it says, the plan of salvation preceded the fall. The heavenly sanctuary, being for confession and the blotting out of sin, it could not have existed before sin entered and brought about the necessity for such a structure. Now, when does the sanctuary did exist? It says immediately after sin is entered. So the sanctuary in heaven exists even before man was created, because the sin entered in the heavenly or in heaven even before the man was created. And according to Alonzo Jones, when Lucifer were fallen into sin, Jesus Christ invited him to repent. And there is no other place for confession of sin except the sanctuary. But concerning the thrones in the sanctuary, the shepherds have declared clearly it did not exist, or there was no throne. So let us read again, track number 3, page 16 and 17. But both John's and Daniel's vision reveal that the throne in the sanctuary was not there from the beginning of the creation of God. Of course, the beginning of the creation of God, that is when God created angels. That is the beginning of the creation of God. So, the sanctuary exists, brothers and sisters, when sin entered into the universe. But the throne, brothers and sisters, or at that time, there was no throne in the sanctuary. And it says, or from the days of Moses. Even in the days of Moses, there was no throne in the sanctuary. Or yet from the hour that Christ ascended on high, or even from the days of pagan Rome, that indeed it was not set up until after the fall of pagan Rome, when the little horn of the nondescript beast came up in the days of ecclesiastical Rome. Daniel 7, verse 7 to 12, and verse 21 and 22. What does it mean? In the days of ecclesiastical Rome. The same with Daniel 2, verse 44. In the days of these kings, the God of heaven shall set up a kingdom that shall never be destroyed. In answerer number 1, page 24, it says, the statement in the days cannot be before their days, neither after their days. So the voice of inspiration says, the thrones were set up in the sanctuary during the period of ecclesiastical Rome. When does the period of ecclesiastical Rome begins and ends? That is 1,260 years, 538 AD to 1798 AD. 538 AD. So this is the entire period of the when ecclesiastical Rome did reign. Brothers and sisters. And it says during the period of ecclesiastical Rome, the thrones in the heavenly sanctuary did exist. Now, let us read 2SR. 2SR page 195 and 196. 2SR 195, 196. As the wings of the lion and also of the four-headed leopard beast, Babylon and Grecia represent numbers of periods as previously explained on pages 33 to 42. Then they must stand for the same on this beast. They are to point out the seal under which the judgment began, the sixth seal, therefore 6 wings. Why is it that the poor beast has 6 wings? To point out that the judgment began when the sixth seal, brothers and sisters, it says, begun. Now, when does the sixth seal begun? Let us read. 2SR 213. The sixth seal opens with the Lesbos earthquake of November 1, 1755. When does the, brothers and sisters, the thrones are set up where? In the holy place. When? In the days of ecclesiastical Rome. So within the period of ecclesiastical Rome, the thrones are set up where? Not in the most holy place, but in the holy place. So it must be within this period of time. But what is the answer? The thrones in the holy place are set up at the time when the sixth seal began. When does the sixth seal began? November 1, 1755. So here, what happened in November 1, 1755? Earthquake. Literal earthquake. So, one of the occurrence, when God will set up the thrones, there must be earthquake. Brothers and sisters, so it must be on November 1, 1755. And we know that God the Father entered to the most holy place. Not in October 22, 1844. In October 22, 1844, it is Jesus Christ who entered to the most holy place. But in November 1, 1755, the thrones are cast down in the holy place, brothers and sisters, and God the Father entered to the most holy place. And there was earthquake, literal earthquake. So in this study, the proceedings in the holy place, the judgment commenced in 1833. Within 10 years, from 1833 to October 22, 1844. So the message of William Miller in 1833, when William Miller declared that the judgment is come, is also correct. What judgment? In the holy place. Although William Miller has no understanding concerning the heavenly sanctuary. So, if we will be talking about holy place, then Sister White says 1,800 years, then 1833 minus 1,800, then you will fall on 33 AD. But we called it the special session. The regular session commenced in 44 AD. Also 1,800 years to 1844. 1,800 years. This one is also from 33 AD to 1833. That is also 1,800 years. Now, let us proceed to another passage. I would like to read track number 3. Track number 3. On page 42 and page 43. Track number 3, page 42 and page 43. In both of these parables, track number 3, page 42 and 43. In both of these parables, Christ is sounding the forewarning that the investigative judgment will take place in the time called harvest, which is the end of the world, the time in which the 2,300 days culminate, just as the angel declared. So October 22, 1844 is the commencement of the harvest. Harvest of what? Harvest that pertains to the dead. What is the other term of harvest? Cleansing of the sanctuary. So let us now go back to our reading in track number 3, page 85. Therefore, that statement, second fruits, from 100 AD to October 22, 1844, it says, second fruits of the dead. It is referring to the saints that will be resurrected on the second visible coming of Jesus Christ. All of them are categorized as the second fruits. Who are they to be resurrected in the second visible coming of Jesus Christ? Those who died under the first seal, second seal, and also third seal, fourth seal, and fifth seal. Or the shepherd's rod called them as temple. The temple. So those will be resurrected on the second visible coming of Jesus Christ, the second fruits of the first seal, the second fruits of the second seal, the second fruits of the third seal, the second fruits of the fourth seal, the second fruits of the fifth seal. And we need to find out their corresponding first seal. Who are they, the first seal, or the first fruits of the first seal? Who are they, the first fruits of the second seal? Who are they, the first fruits of the third seal? Who are they, the first fruits of the fourth seal? And who are they, the first fruits of the fifth seal? Are the corresponding second fruits of the first seal to be resurrected at the second visible coming of Jesus Christ? Are they those who had been resurrected in 31 AD? Because those that had been resurrected in 31 AD, all of them are first fruits. The first fruits of the first seal, the first fruits of the second seal, and the first fruits of the third seal. All of them are first fruits. So there must be corresponding second fruits. Thus, the corresponding second fruits of the first seal in 31 AD is to be resurrected on the second visible coming of Jesus Christ, as well as the second seal and third seal. That is the most important that we need to study closely, brothers and sisters. The matching first fruit and second fruits. The 120 disciples, they were first fruits. But gospel first fruits. Then who are they? The second fruits. Gospel second fruits. By which they were appointed to die and then they will be resurrected. So, I'm just giving you the idea, brothers and sisters, so that we need to dig deeper on this subject. And all these subjects, the evidences in the shepherd's rod are sufficient enough to explain all these occurrences, both in the heavenly as well as on the earthly sanctuary. Now, I would like to read the great controversy. The Great Controversy, page 600. 612. 611 and 612. It says, let us read this statement. The work will be similar to that of the day of Pentecost, as the former rain was given in the outpouring of the Holy Spirit at the opening of the gospel. So, the Pentecost on June 7, 31 AD, on the days of the apostles, it is called the opening of the gospel. So, the 120 disciples, they were gospel first fruits of the opening of the gospel. Therefore, there must be corresponding second fruits in the closing work of the gospel. When we'll be saying closing work of the gospel, let us distinctly separate the close of provision. For example, let me read to you the statement given by the shepherd's rod in the Old Symbolic Code. Old Symbolic Code on page 4 Symbolic Code 4 to 9, page 10. 4 Symbolic Code 4 to 9, page 10. And remember, the only difference, brothers and sisters, with when the thrones are cast down in the holy place and November 1, 1755, the earthquake is literal. But we are studying that the thrones are cast down, brothers and sisters. The thrones are cast down in the heavenly sanctuary. after the investigative judgment in the holy place is completed. Therefore, at that time, when the thrones are cast down, there must also be earthquake. But not literal, symbolical or figurative earthquake. Now, I would like to read for symbolic code 4 to 9, page 10. Christ Object Lessons, page 122. When the mission of the gospel is completed, the judgment will accomplish the work of separation. Is not the judgment here mentioned the second advent of Christ when the saints are delivered? Answer. It is generally understood that Christ's second advent is preceded by the judgment. Christ Object Lessons, page 122, does not say that the completion of the gospel work is the close of provision. So that is the statement given by the shepherd's rod. That is erroneous idea that the completion of the gospel is the close of provision. Now, let's read again the statement. Christ Object Lessons, page 122, does not say that the completion of the gospel work is the close of provision, but rather that when the mission of the gospel is completed, the judgment will accomplish the work of separation. So the judgment will accomplish the work of separation. That is, as the gospel during the judgment of the living completes its work with each individual, each case is decided in the judgment and each is then separated one from another. This proves that the separation is accomplished during the time of the judgment, not after the close of provision. Therefore, during the judgment of the living, the wheat and the tares must be separated. And hoping that you will read this paragraph again and again. The shepherd's rod made it so plain that that predicted event, that the gospel or the completion of the gospel is not the close of provision. According to the shepherd's rod, that the judgment will accomplish the work of separation when the mission of the gospel is completed. When the mission of the gospel. What is the mission of the gospel? The mission of the gospel, brothers and sisters, that there must be a group of people by which unto them the entire plan of redemption is unfolded. That's what it means by the completion of the gospel, represented by the third angel's message. Now, for example, I would like to read to you Lessons on Faith. Let me see. Lessons on Faith on page 102. Lessons on Faith, page 102. And this is the mystery of God today and forever. It is concerning that declaration that the mystery of God must be finished. there are a lot of significance of that predicted event. But let us go first to the very first application of that predicted event. As far as the 1888 message is thus concerned, it says, consecrated way to Christian perfection. On page 113, it says, the cleansing of the sanctuary and the finishing of the mystery of God are identical as to time, and are also so closely related as to be practically identical in character and event. So, the cleansing of the sanctuary, meaning, we know that the cleansing of the sanctuary commenced in October 22, 1844. So, in that period of time, the plan of redemption is gradually unfolded. Because it is identical. But on the final day of atonement, when all the names of the wicked are completely blotted out, at the same time, being identical, there must also be a group of people by which the entire plan of redemption is completely finished to them. Meaning, it was revealed and unfolded to them. So let us read again, Lessons on Faith, page 102. And this is the mystery of God today and forever. God manifests in the flesh, in human flesh, in flesh laden with sin, tempted and tried. In this flesh, God will manifest the knowledge of Himself in every place where the believer is found. Believe it and praise His holy name. This is the mystery which today in the third angel's message is again to be made known to all nations for the obedience of the faith. This is the mystery of God, which in this time is to be finished. Not only finished in the sense of being ended to the world, but finished in the sense of being brought to completion in its grand work in the believer. This is the time when the mystery of God is to be finished in the sense that God is to be manifest in the flesh in every true believer, in every place where that believer shall be found. This is indeed and in truth the keeping of the commandments of God and the faith of Jesus. But I would like to emphasize in the upper portion, it says in 102, do not forget either that the mystery of God is not God manifest in sinless flesh, but God manifest in sinful flesh. I would like to read to you the description given by the shepherd's rod when God's people will reach the kingdom. Answerer number 3, page 90. It says, and finally, when they enter the promised land, Answerer number 3, page 90. And finally, when they enter the promised land, and God gives them new hearts, and inscribe His commandments thereupon, Ezekiel 36, verse 23 to 29, then for the cleansed ones to venture to sin will be 1,000 times greater trial than it was to Joseph in Egypt when he cried out against temptation, how can I do this great wickedness and sin against God? Genesis 39, verse 9. And no more possible than it was for Christ. Indeed, sin will be as naturally abhorrent to us then as death is now. Christ make this possible by washing away our sins with His precious blood, recreating in us a sinless nature, a new heart, while taking us from among the heathen and bringing us into our own land. So when God's people reach the kingdom and then with that heart operation, their nature is no longer sinful nature. What is their nature? Sinless nature. But according to the prophecy, the plan of redemption, the mystery of God must be finished to the people laden with sin, in a sinful nature. We can easily understand that such plans of redemption will be bestowed by God to His people before they reach the kingdom. Because when they reach the kingdom, their nature is no longer sinful, but rather sinless nature. Answerer number 3, page 90. There are many passages, but I just quote one passage to prove that when we will be in God's kingdom, our nature is no longer sinful, but sinless nature. But the promise is that God will manifest Himself. The knowledge of the plan of redemption, which is in Christ Jesus, will be imparted to His people at the time when they were still in their sinful nature. And because of that plan of redemption, brothers and sisters, I do fully believe that what it means by Apostle Peter in 2 Peter on chapter 1. It says, 2 Peter chapter 1 verse 3 and 4. According as His divine power hath given unto us all things that pertain unto life and godliness, through the knowledge of Him that hath called us to glory and virtue, whereby are given unto us exceeding great and precious promises, that by this ye might be partakers of the divine nature, having escaped the corruption that is in the world through lust. 2 Peter chapter 1, verse 3 and verse 4. So to repeat again, brothers and sisters, remember, one of the significance of that promise that God will make him ruler over all his goods is the finishing of the gospel. So that statement, finishing of the gospel, the same with the statement, the completion of the gospel. To SR 179, the significance of all his goods is the finishing of the gospel, bringing everlasting righteousness and ushering in the kingdom of Christ. What a wonderful promise. To SR 179. Now, brothers and sisters, since the plan of redemption is revealed through Christ's mediatorial work in the heavenly sanctuary, according to 2SR 187, therefore, to understand the plan of redemption is to understand the entire book of Revelation, because the vision of John reveals the entire proceeding from start to finish. Track number 15, page 13. It says, track number 15, page 13. Both seers distinctly declare that the event which they saw was the judgment. The difference between the two scenes is that Daniel was led to look into the sanctuary while preparations were being made for the judgment to convene, whereas John was led to look into the sanctuary after the judgment had been set up. In fact, John not only saw the judgment in progress, but he saw the whole proceedings from start to finish. So the book of Revelation is a revelation of the whole proceedings in the heavenly sanctuary, from start to finish. Now, what is the statement given in the Bible? Hereafter. That is after John's time. And it exactly fits to our subject. From 100 AD. Therefore, it cannot be 100 AD backward. Because the vision of the revelation ended in 98 AD. So it must be from that time after onwards. And that is the promise that the third angel's message will never swell into a loud cry, not until all the aspects that pertains to the judgment will be unfolded. So I would like to read again here in White House Recruiter, page 39. White House Recruiter, page 39. It says, all who have perused these pages to this point have surely become aware of the fact that even this very restricted representation of the additional message, that of the judgment of the living, gives in itself tremendous power and force to the three angels' messages. Early Writings, page 277. But in what way is it to give absolute power and force to them? First, by bringing to light the heretofore unrevealed aspects of the judgment. And then subsequently, by freeing God's people from both sin and sinners, thereby bringing into existence the long-looked-for purified church that looketh forth as the morning, fair as the moon, clear as the sun, and terrible as an army with banners. Song of Solomon, chapter 6, verse 10. Prophets and Kings, page 725. A veritable powerhouse indeed. What gave absolute power and force to the third angel's message that it will swell into a loud cry? By bringing to light all the unrevealed aspects that pertains to the judgment. And we read several times that according to White House Recruiter, page 34, it says, with the completed judgment message during the 11th hour. So the divinely appointed time by which the judgment message will be completed, all the aspects will be completely revealed, is during the 11th hour. And because of that unfoldment of all unrevealed aspects that pertains to the judgment, the third angel's message will swell into a loud cry. The only knowledge that Sister White has is October 22, 1844. That Jesus Christ entered to the most holy place at that time. But besides that, no more information. And God promised that such information, He will bestow it to the 11th hour church, to the 11th hour servants. Sister White, B.T. Hotep, Alonzo Jones, Waggoner, Miller, and all his associates, the work that was entrusted unto them is to write all the necessary information and evidences. But to understand, it was not given to them because it was not present truth in their lifetime. And that is why I fully believe that, brothers and sisters, we already explained that according to 4 BC, Sister White inscribed it in plural form. Golden bowls. Golden bowls. Right? That is plural form. And what is bowls? Represent publications. So, it cannot be mistaken. Here in 4 BC 1180, these emptied themselves into the golden bowls. 4 BC 1180. Actually, it is not the only passage. You can read in Testimonies to Ministers, Review and Herald. More than 10 passages in the writings of Sister White. Sister White used golden bowls. And I'm wondering, was it the Bidian told me when I posted in Facebook, they said, where did you get that words, golden bowls? But they did not even look at to the passage because it was quoted only in 4 BC 1180. Because of their prejudice, they thought that that word golden bowls cometh from us. No. Was it that it is bowls? Because there are many publications. But why is it in the Bible, it is singular, golden bowl? Because all that publications, writings of William Miller and all his associates, in Zechariah chapter 1, brothers and sisters, in Zechariah chapter 1, there are 3 horses. Therefore, there are 3 inspired servants, 3 writings. Right? And that is Miller and Joshua Hives, and I think the other is, I no longer remember the exact name. And then, Sister White, Alonzo Jones, Waggoner, then the last is B.T. Hotep. Therefore, there are 7, indicates completeness. But the mere fact that the Bible used singular form, golden bowl, all of them we need to teach in the light of the shepherd's rod. Answerer number 5, page 56. Teach only in the light of the shepherd's rod. We can quote the writings of William Miller, or Sister White, or Alonzo Jones, Waggoner, or Joshua Hives, but we need to teach that in the light of the shepherd's rod. So, hoping, brothers and sisters, that you will abide listening and viewing this program. If there's something that it is not clear to you, it is our great pleasure to have those questions. And we'll try our best with the help of God to find answers all of your inquiries. So thank you very much. And may the good Lord bless you, brothers and sisters, and have a beautiful, wonderful evening.